A surfing professor makes it his life's work to care for the coral reefs, plus an excerpt from the State of Indian Nation's speech. I'm Mackenzie Ellen Trumley. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
Chinangale, we're so happy you could join us. We start in South Dakota, where the Oglala Sioux tribe is taking the government to court for more protection. The Pine Ridge Indian Reservation sprawls over 3.1 million acres. It's an area larger than Delaware and Rhode Island combined. There are only 30 police officers currently serving the nation's 40,000 residents. The Oglala Sioux tribe is suing the federal government, claiming it is failing to provide enough law enforcement. Oglala Chief of Police Algan Young testified in federal court that his officers are exhausted, and OST officials say the suit is important beyond the borders of the reservation.
The United States government needs to listen to Native Americans throughout the nation. You know, for decades and decades and decades, we've been ignored, put on a back burner. And today, we're taking that stand, not only as a tribe, but as a nation, and speaking for Indian country that we need to be heard.
Spokesperson for the Bureau of Indian Affairs told ICT that they cannot comment on ongoing litigation. In Australia, the Australian Parliament has approved new funding for Indigenous Australians. The government approved 424 million Australian dollars to be spent improving the lives of Aboriginal people. The money will be used to close the gap between the wider Australian population and the Aboriginal peoples. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese told Parliament that the funding reaffirms his support for helping Aboriginal people. The money will be used to provide clean drinking water and fight domestic violence. The money will be spent over 4 years within Aboriginal communities. In Montana, a law replacing Columbus Day with Indigenous Peoples Day has once again been shut down. The bill recently appeared before the Education and Cultural Resources Committee. More than 30 people spoke in support of the bill that would establish Indigenous Peoples Day as an official state holiday. However, the committee tabled the bill with little explanation. Blackfeet citizen and Senator Susan Weber tried to resurrect the bill, but her motion was voted down. Salish and Kootenai citizen and bill sponsor Shane Morgeau stated that tabling the IPD bill without proper discussion was shameful. Morgeau said his bill was an attempt to help non-natives better understand tribes and their cultures. This marks the 5th attempt to establish a statewide Indigenous Peoples Day in Montana. Well, a federal project aimed to increase tribal sovereignty has received hundreds of thousands in funding. The Tribal Supreme Court project recently received $600,000 to monitor and defend court cases that stand to impact tribal sovereignty. Last week, the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians announced a 2-year grant of $300,000 per year to specifically support the project. The initiative was co-founded in 2001 with the National Congress of American Indians and the Native American Rights Fund. The project offers information, coordination, and legal aid to tribal leaders and attorneys preparing for cases before the United States Supreme Court. Already, more than 200 attorneys and academics specializing in Indian law work within the project, according to its website. Notable cases the group has worked on include Holland versus Brackeen, Department of the Interior versus the Navajo Nation, and Oklahoma versus Sims. In Bolivia, the indigenous trans community came out to crown the 2023 Cholita Transformist. This year's title went to two winners during an event where a dozen candidates dressed in Cholita fashion made popular by indigenous women. The event is part of an effort to reclaim traditional Native clothing and to give the indigenous trans movement more visibility. These contestants took to the red carpet in multi-layered Indian skirts called the polera. One of this year's winners spoke about how discrimination against their community is always present.
No, siempre va a discriminar.
We will always be discriminated against. There will always be this taboo. There is always discrimination everywhere. We have to eradicate discrimination from the schools because in the same house, the parents are very sexist, especially my father, who has even discriminated against me for being gay.
Progress for the LGBTI community has been slow and in the conservative country. In 2020, a same-sex couple had their civil union registered thanks to a court ruling. And in Alaska, after 2 years, one Native community is celebrating the completion of ceremonial dance robes. Chilkat robes feature long wool fringe that sways when the wearer dances. Traditionally, leaders would wear the clothing during certain ceremonies. This kind of weaving is one of the most complex techniques in the world. The child-sized robes were made by 30 students who participated in a more than 2-year-long apprenticeship to learn the craft. And it all started with artist Lily Hope, who started offering lessons virtually during the pandemic. The artist said she wanted to expand the knowledge of the craft, which reached student weavers in Southeast Alaska and across the country. The robes are now featured for viewing at the Juneau Douglas City Museum in an exhibit dedicated to the art form. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Meet an Arizona State University assistant professor whose laboratory is the ocean. Instead of a lab coat, Cliff Capono uses a surfboard. He's an analytical chemist at ASU's School of Social Transformation and School of Life Sciences. And this native Hawaiian is also a professional surfer. Welcome, Professor Capono.
Aloha, thank you for having me.
This is an awesome combination of skills. You have to tell us about your journey.
Yeah, it all started for me kind of separating my two passions in life, surfing and science. And it wasn't until the later part of my graduate studies that I was able to unite the two and move into a career that is filled with both trying to surf the best waves in the world and find out new ways to protect them.
Bringing up coral reefs, what exactly are you learning about them?
So some of the main projects that I look to investigate are trying to find out how coral reefs can be seen as resilient organisms. And in the Hawaiian culture, the coral reef are our ancestors. So it's something that we're trying to really explore and see what are some of the biological and physiological factors that provide these resiliencies to our ancestor reefs. And we're hoping that if we learn more about the resiliency of our ancestors, maybe it'll give us a better indication of how we can be resilient as a people in the Hawaiian community.
How does being a native Hawaiian impact your worldview of the ocean and living things in the water?
Yeah, I mean, being a Hawaiian person, it's my whole identity is the ocean. As with many native people, the place which they are a part of, the place that raises them, it's just a part of their life, and separating the two is like very detrimental to the overall well-being. So for me, having the ocean and being Hawaiian Kanaka Maoli, it just makes me feel like I'm living a full life to protect myself and my home.
Did your family in any way influence your decision to go into sciences?
Yeah, my parents were really supportive of us trying to learn different forms of expressing how we see the world. So whether it's in our Hawaiian language or whether it's in like Latin or whatever, my family has been, and my community has been really supportive of education and science. So yeah, I think I've had a really supportive upbringing, and I'm really privileged in that sense to be given that support.
Could you tell us about the partnerships that you have within your research?
Yeah, so within the research, I specifically work in a lab called the Mega Lab, and we study ocean conservation and ocean science. And within that Mega Lab consortium, it's people who are part of Arizona State University, which is myself, but also people at the University of Hawaii. So we try to create a team of investigators that can pull from different students and resources here in Hawaii, where I do my research. And I'm primarily based out of the Center for Global Discovery and Conservation Science out of ASU. But the Mega Lab is this extension place where we can bring in people from all different institutions and places to think about how we can better protect the ocean.
Let's turn to surfing. What does it mean to you to be a professional surfer?
It's like a job kind of you have to provide certain expectations from a sponsor, and they send you to surf places. I don't know, it's professional surfing is pretty cloudy. I compete in a few competitions a year and mostly just try to surf good waves and provide the surf industry with media. So it's not too glorious. It's kind of selfish, really. It's not like science.
When we talk about the science, industry of science and Native representation, do you feel that being involved in this industry is kind of like a superpower?
Yeah, like if you mean like being an Indigenous person, making me more competitive in scientific literacy, for sure. I think all Indigenous peoples have so much wealth of knowledge and data stored within the songs and the dances and the arts. So it's just, we're already coming from a large repository of valuable information that can help improve the current state of society and the planet. So yeah, I think it is kind of like a superpower. But in really, like, I would hope that people acknowledge that they have these stories within their own families, within their own clothing, within their own songs. And if they can really appreciate that, we're going to be extremely competitive, and there'll be so many opportunities that we're going to have to start figuring out how to disseminate in an appropriate way the information to people outside our community.
Well, Professor Capono, thank you so much for joining us.
Mahalo nui. Thank you.
Leaders from across the country are in Washington, D.C. this week with the National Congress of American Indians. One of the highlights is the State of Indian Nations address given by its president. Fawn Sharp is the 23rd president of NCAI. She is the vice president of the Quilnot Indian Nation in the Pacific Northwest. Let's take a look at an excerpt from her speech.
80 years ago, when NCAI was founded, there was no seat at the table for us. Day after day, decade after decade, we forged ahead with an agenda that many consider to be quite radical. But today, after nearly 80 years on the front lines of policymaking, standing side by side with our partners, we don't just have a seat at the table, we have influence and we have representation all across the federal government, all across the United States, and around the world. And now, to make good on that progress, to stand up for our rights, to defend tribal sovereignty and safeguard our children's future, we have to show up. After generations of struggle, and time again of our inabilities, we have demonstrated resilience. We are, all of us together, as strong and as united as ever. Let me remind you, just in the last 12 months alone, what we've accomplished. This is that part of the State of the Nation where I get into some policy. So let's talk about some policy accomplishments. This past year, we came together to secure advance appropriations for IHS. No longer will our healthcare facilities be left to wonder when their budgets will be approved, or when the money will be sent, or whether they'll be able to provide life-saving services to our people, even if the government shuts down. This past year, we also came together to make sure that VAWA was not only reauthorized, but expanded. The new act provides our tribal justice system with crucial resources to protect Native women, children, our law enforcement officers. And it makes clear for every would-be offender, violent crimes committed against our people and our children on our soil will be under our jurisdiction. This past year, we also came together to achieve parity with state and local governments on critical pieces of funding. I'm talking about more than $1 billion awarded in grants and loans to expand high-speed internet, $580 million to provide long-awaited water resources, and nearly $470 million for tribal nations living on the front lines of climate change. We did this. We have incredible momentum, and now it is up to us as tribal leaders to just show up and demand more. More for our elders, more for our youth, and more for our future. We must show up and make sure that the Farm Bill includes provisions to help repatriate our lands, to build our economies, to protect our foods, to protect our medicines. Passage alone isn't enough. We as sovereign nations must have a final say over what we do on our lands and how we choose to take care of our own people. We must show up and fight for the return of our lands. Our land is sacred. It is essential for the full exercise of our sovereignty, for the preservation of our traditions, and for the health of our tribal communities. And while we're making progress in restoring our homelands, we must redown and redouble on our efforts. Now is the time to push as hard as we can to secure favorable federal policies that promote the restoration of our tribal land bases, that ensure our sovereign decisions are not only respected, but they are upheld. We must also show up and fight for federal fundings at levels to uphold the trust responsibility and the legally binding treaties. Because while the Biden administration has made historic commitments to meet the basic needs of tribal communities, federal funding, as we all know and see every single day for our tribal programs, remain far short from the debt the United States owes to our tribal nations. And that's why we will continue to push for bills like the Honoring Promises Act, which seeks to provide funding to tribal nations at the levels we are rightfully owed and at the levels we were promised. Similarly, we must show up on issues of inequality, of dual taxation, by demanding that the federal government affirm our authority to tax and regulate commerce on our own lands without interference from the states, and demand that the United States simply get out of our way. The U.S. tax code fails to provide our tribal nations the same opportunities as states. Our present is the result of the blood, sweat, and sacrifices of our ancestors. Today, it's our turn to continue their struggle and to fight for a better future for all of our tribal nations and citizens. We demand that the federal government provides Indian country with the same economic tools and resources as state governments. This fight is so much more than about just simply money and commerce and our economies. It's about true parity as sovereigns so that we can exercise the inherent powers to better the lives of our own people and for the United States to simply get out of our way. And I'm telling you, when I stood on the front steps of the United States Supreme Court last November, through prayer and through a fast, I had the words that came to me so clearly that there is nothing that they can do to separate us from our children. There is nothing they could do to separate us from our sacred sites. There is nothing they can do to take away that which the Almighty Creator has gifted to each and every one of us from when time began and that's guaranteed until the end of time. There is nothing they could do, no court decision, no piece of legislation. But you know what? Since that time, the Creator has also given me additional clarity about that. And the additional clarity is simply that it's so much more than the love and affection we have for our children, so much more than the love and affection we have for our sacred sites, for our relationship with all things living in the waters and the sky and the forest. It is so much more than that. As great and as beautiful as that is, it is so much more than that. And what do I mean by it? It's not simply the gift that we receive, that we hold in the present generation. It is the gift of the spiritual connection we have with all of that the Creator has gifted to us. Because when we appreciate those gifts in that place, that is where we find ourselves reunited with our ancestors. That is where we find we have the strength of our Creator in every word, every action, and every decision. So that, my friends, my family, is the source and power and strength of Indian country that our ancestors knew, that our ancestors taught us. The spiritual part of who we are is indestructible, and that cannot be broken. That cannot be annihilated. That cannot be destroyed. That cannot be terminated. That is who we are as Native people from the beginning of time until the end of time. And so when we step into that place where we advocate for our policies and we step into that space with all humility, we have nothing that can stop us, and there is nothing that they can do to take that away from us. And the visual that I see, that we all have seen through the years, is that brave warrior that gets on a horse in front of a firing squad and a barrage of bullets. And that warrior simply extends his hands out and looks to the heavens and can go from one side of the battlefield to the other against a barrage of bullets and remain unscathed and strong and humble as ever. That is what we were taught. And that is where we need to go at this crucial moment of time. Our ancestors have worked so hard to get us to this place. The lives, when you consider the 150,000 lives of our sweet, dear children that were taken to boarding schools, the sacrifices they made, every tear they shed against every infliction of abuse and neglect, those tears run deep within our spirit. Those tears are what motivates us to seek and to have an unquenched thirst for justice and for healing for all of us. So I call upon each and every one of you in this moment and in this hour to do as our ancestors have instructed and as our Creator has instructed. Wake up with prayer. Throughout the day, be grateful for just having the breath of life. Be grateful that while the most powerful country in the world tried to assimilate and destroy us, we are still here. Back to my speech. And while I'm speaking of our fight for parity, I'm very proud to say that thanks to so many Native people working in public service, showing up and making real change happen, we now have unprecedented access across the highest levels of government. For the first time, we have a Native woman in the president's cabinet. We have representation in the White House, at Interior, the USDA, the Department of Commerce, in Treasury, the Office of Management and Budget, as well as IHS, Army Civil Works, FEMA, the Small Business Administration, and just this last week, there is now an Office of Representation in the Social Security Administration as well. We have more representation in Congress than ever before, with 1 senator and 4 representatives in the House, along with many Native and non-Native staffers who are working behind the scenes in congressional offices who actually understand Indian country and who work with us to make real and lasting change.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.